So today we're taking a look at a book on Wing Chun Kung-Fu printed by one of Bruce Lee's students. Hi guys, my name is Joe and welcome to my channel, Fighting Words, the Martial Arts Library. And on this channel I review martial arts books and I also talk about other martial arts related subjects. The subject of today's review is Wing Chun Kung-Fu by Jimmy Yimm Lee. One thing to note about the author, as I said up front, Bruce Lee taught him Wing Chun Kung-Fu. The author had quite the life. He was a veteran of the Philippines campaign in the United States Army during World War II. He had also practiced traditional Chinese martial arts as well as Western boxing. He had even published a book on Iron Palm, which is a practice on, breaking bricks and various objects. Unfortunately, he died the same year this book was published from cancer. And in a bit of another tragedy, when I was looking into his background, his wife had actually also passed away, several years before, but not a whole lot of good luck, unfortunately. The book itself, in the foreword and the about the author section, Mr. Lee, not Bruce Lee, he's really praising Bruce Lee for his particular brand of Wing Chun and his approach to practicality. And you do see that approach to practicality throughout the book. We also get a short history section, as well as a section that explains the concepts of yin and yang and how they relate to Chinese Kung Fu. We start off covering stances, as you would in most martial arts books of this sort. He also covers a lot of principles in this section, principles that you would find in other Wing Chun Kung Fu books. For instance, the centerline principle, the principle of the immovable elbow. So, right off the bat, we're getting an introduction to principles like this. After that, we get a section on blocks, and that includes blocks with both the forward and the rear hand. These cover the four corners. If you got a center line, then you divide it upper and lower, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So the defenses he's showing are designed to cover those four quadrants. In this section, he also talks about economy of motion and that you don't want to overblock. In other words, if all I need is this much force to stop an attack, I shouldn't use that much force because now I'm out of position. That would be an example of overblocking. We continue on with principles. We get, for instance, the principle of facing, and this dovetails into the section on footwork and also shifting stances from left to right stance. Following that, we get a demonstration and an explanation of Lim Dao, which is the first form found in Wing Chun Kung-Fu. And we get that from both a head-on perspective and also from a profile or side-on perspective. And I think that this is a nice touch because, if you see stuff head-on, you might not always be able to determine, for instance, how far away is the hand from the body. And similarly from side on, you may not understand the perspective, is the guy's hand here? Is it here? Is it here? You can't tell from that side. So I think that's a good feature of this book. We also get the basic strikes, and that includes inner gate punches and outer gate punches. So these are punches that use the forearm to deflect or ride another punch. So you're either punching from the outer gate, the outside of the opponent coming in, or from the inside of the gate going outward, and it's demonstrating how to use both of those punches to deflect an opponent's incoming attack. After the section on punches, we get a section on kicks, and all these kicks are thrusting in nature, like straight thrusting kick, side thrusting kick. It does show applications for those. Once we get past that, the fundamental attacking and defensive techniques, we get into a section on Chi Sao, which is referred to as an energy drill. Although he also notes that calling it an energy drill doesn't mean there's anything mystical about it. He explicitly states that there is nothing mystical about it. So Chi Sao, for those who are unfamiliar, your wrists and forearms are touching those of your training partner, and you are using that connection to feel the direction of force as they try to attack, or when they defend from your attack, how to respond to that. Included in this, we're going over some trapping sequences. So trapping in Wing Chun Kung-Fu is basically taking the arms out of the equation and tying a guy up. Using that position to open up other lines of attack and also preventing him from attacking you. It should be noted in this section, sometimes we get illustrations instead of pictures. After that, we get an extensive section of both attacking and defending the outside and inside gates. Again, the term is referred to as anything outside of my arm is on the outside, anything inside of this lead arm is on the inside. So attacking from different angles, basically. And finally, we finish up with a section on training methods. Most of those focus on training with the dummy, and we also get a glossary here, which for me is always a plus for any kind of martial arts book. As far as the pros go, as I mentioned earlier, we get both the forward perspective and the profile or side-on perspective for the form. And I sort of wish every martial arts book that included forms would do something along these lines. So I think it helps the reader get a very good idea of what's going on during the form. I also appreciate that they generally have a very practical approach to Wing Chun Kung-Fu. Again, the author particularly eschews any mysticism. He's all about, punch the guy in the face. Get the arms out of the way, punch the guy in the face. As far as the cons go, as is typical of books from around this time and even today, we're getting a lot of like Wing Chun versus Wing Chun or Wing Chun versus traditional Kung Fu. This is a problem because the odds of you facing another Wing Chun guy, somebody bumps into you, hey, do you want to fight? You're probably not going to find yourself in that situation. So I would have appreciated showing his system being used against things like, what we would call habitual acts of violence, like, the big roundhouse punches, the grabbing and punching attacks, maybe headlocks if he's got something for that. So instead we get, Wing Chun versus Wing Chun. Recommendations. Like I said, I think it is a more practical approach to Wing Chun than what I've typically seen. If you are interested in a more practical approach using Wing Chun Kung Fu as a medium, might not be a bad idea to take a look at this book. There's also sort of the novelty aspect of it because, as I mentioned, this is one of Bruce Lee's students. And as I understand it, the guy that introduced him to Ed Parker, an individual very involved in the life of Bruce Lee, certainly in his earlier life. One of the few certified Jeet Kune Do guys, certified by Bruce Lee. I will say it's interesting to me that, Bruce Lee famously did not finish the Wing Chun Kung Fu syllabus. So this is a guy that studied under a guy who didn't understand the complete syllabus. I am wondering, I like a lot of what I see. How would this look from the perspective of a seasoned Wing Chun Kung Fu guy? I studied it sort of in spots. I understand the first form, but as far as formal training goes, I wonder if someone who has studied Wing Chun Kung-Fu for like 10 or 12 or more years would take a look at this book and like, oh, if they had just gotten to this part of Wing Chun, they would have already seen an answer for that. I don't know. But I would generally recommend it to people who are beginners in Wing Chun, or people who, as much as I hate to say it, are of the cult of Bruce Lee, and anything related to Bruce Lee, they're just going to collect and collect and collect. So I think people from those camps would probably appreciate this more. So thank you for watching my video. That's all I have for this week, and I'll see you guys next week.